All right, so we're about to dive into this week's market snapshot. What's happened in the Northern Virginia real estate market in the last 7 days in under 5 minutes. Here we go. All right, so we've been letting you guys know that we've seen a window opening up for buyers, where we've seen buyer activity kind of decreasing and inventory kind of increasing over the past several weeks, maybe even a month and a half or so. As you have probably heard, if you've been watching anything to do with real estate, they are expecting the Feds to lower the interest rates in September, and as a result of that, we've seen the interest rates already start coming down this past couple weeks. So we are starting to see buyer activity tick up, and we're actually starting to see inventory come down a little bit. So that buyer window may or may not be closing. We'll just have to see how this plays out. But let's look at what's happened in the last 7 days. And again, the reason we look at a 7-day window, we are looking at what we call lead measures. So lead measures are things like properties that went under contract this week, properties that were put on the market this week. So we're seeing what the inventory or the supply is doing actively, and we're seeing what the demand or the buyer activity is doing actively. And we look at it over the last 7 days so that we can make a call based on what we need to do in the market as a buyer or a seller. If you use the statistics, the monthly statistics, quite often, if you look back at where those statistics come from, let's think about it like this. If we closed on a house today is August 17th. If we put a contract on a house today, August 17th, we would likely close on this house September 17th, or possibly by the end of September, because usually it's a 30-day close. So we would close in September. Those numbers would not be calculated until probably October 10th to 15th. And then if it's a national number, or if you're looking at national media, they're distributed out. So it's probably going to come out around November 1st. Even the market calculations that we do on our monthly market report wouldn't come out until October 10th. So anything that went under contract today, you wouldn't see those statistics until October 10th. So you can't make decisions based on monthly sold data, because that is at least 45 to 60 days old. You want to have acute lead measure data so that you can guide your day-to-day transactions. So we're going to dive into those numbers right now and show you exactly what's going on. All right, so as you can see with buyer activity, let me get my little line here. Buyer activity, that is our demand. Buyer activity did go down just a little bit, but it was more of a flat line versus inventory took another significant dip. So this gap between supply versus demand increased versus last week. So if we go over here to the strength of the seller's market, you can see that our seller's market increased in intensity over the last 7 days. Now you can notice a trend. We can see from here down to here, we've had decreases in buyer activity, and we've had a slow and steady increase of inventory at the same time. So that has brought the strength of our seller's market in a downward trajectory. And then we hit this bottom out, which is the same time we hit the bottom out last year. And now we're starting to climb back up, and we're going to stabilize somewhere in here, I predict, with the seller's market. So one of the things, so keep in mind right now that it's still a good window for buyers, because we're not seeing 15 to 20 offers on properties. We are seeing showings kind of slow down, especially the next week or two, because school's fixing to start in Fairfax County. So anytime school either gets out or changes, things tend to slow down. So it's a good opportunity for buyers right now. From a seller's perspective, it's still a seller's market, so you're still, getting, as long as you're pricing the house appropriately, you're still getting that sales price and getting top market value. One of the fears that we hear quite often, and I may have these statistics a little bit off here, but one of these fears that we're hearing right now is that things slow down during the elections. And that is true. Things do tend to slow down during the elections. And I heard some statistics recently, and I need to go back and get these actual numbers, but I want to give you a rough summary. It was something like 11 of the last 13 elections, the interest rates have come down prior to the election, which we're seeing that here. So keep in mind, this elections every 4 years. So we're talking in the last 44 years to 52 years, 11 or 44 of those years when the elections have happened, the interest rates have come down. We're seeing that happen. Also, market activity tends to come down. And I think it was like the same time frame, 11 of the last 13 elections, market activity came down a little bit because there's a little bit of uncertainty who's going to be the president. It really doesn't matter who wins. The change that I'm about to mention does happen either way. But in those situations, the following year, I think it was 10 of the last 11 years, the following year, the market was stronger than it was the previous year. And then also in 8 of the 9 last elections, the prices continued to go up went up in the following year. The only year it did not go up and the only year there was not more activity was 2008, and that was when we had the housing crisis. So what does this mean? It means that if this year follows the same pattern, it means interest rates could come down, buyer activity could decrease a little bit, and then after the election, the interest rates being down, buyer activity is going to pick up, market prices are going to pick up, and everything's going to happen. So what does that mean for you as a buyer? That means that right now is a good window because you can get the lower interest rates without the escalation of what happens after the election. So it's a good window for buyers right now. So you really need to, it's not a buyer's market, it's still a seller's market. Sellers are still in control, but it's not as strong of a seller's market as it has been. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We will be back next week with the market report so we can see if this trend is continuing and see exactly what's going on. All right, talk to you soon.